Hello and welcome. It's a beautiful day in Techtober once again, and today we are looking at the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Now, Google, seriously, they really came out swinging for the fences with this one. And with specs alone, it blows the Pixel 5 out of the water. Now, if you want to see a deep dive on this phone, check out the live stream that we did following along the Pixel launch event. Myself and Stephen commentated along, and from there you'll see everything when it comes to specs, pricing, and all the new features that are included. But for this video alone, we're just going to be looking at what's new in the camera and comparing it with a couple other phones to see where exactly it stands. So let's start with the camera specs, because holy heck, this thing is insane. It's got a 50 megapixel wide camera, a 48 megapixel telephoto camera, as well as a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. And each of those is coming in at around f1.9, f3.5, and f2.2. So these are seriously impressive specs, and that's for the main ones. For the selfie camera, we're getting 11.1 megapixel and f2.2 aperture as well on that. Now, as for video, we're looking at 4K up to 60 FPS and 1080p up to 240 FPS. So as you can see, the specs on the Pixel 6 Pro just blow the Pixel 5 out of the water. And I think that has a lot to do with their new system on a chip called the Tensor. Now, if you're not familiar, this is very similar to what Apple has in both their iPhones, iPads, and now all their MacBook lines as well, which with the iPhones, you have the A15 Bionic chip, and with the MacBooks and even the iPad Pro, we have the M1 chip. And essentially, this is a consolidated system, basically your processor, your GPU, as well as a new neural engine, all on one chip made bespoke and specifically for this phone. So I think, again, that's one of the reasons we see the Pixel being able to have such high megapixels, is because all the processing power is now being handled by this brand new Tensor system on a chip. And not only does that allow higher megapixel counts, it also improves the computational photography. In theory, we're gonna actually have to see if it does. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So starting off, I have all the photos stored locally on my iPad here, and I'm gonna compare them side by side on the same screen. So this should be the most accurate way of looking at both of these photos and comparing them. So in saying that, let's start off looking at the Google Pixel 6 versus the Pixel 5. So having a look here, the Google Pixel 6 is on the left and the Google Pixel 5 is on the right. And my initial reaction, these both look, they both look almost identical. I can kind of see in the roof here on the top right, there's certainly, oh, it disappears when I zoom in, but you can see there's this sort of moire effect happening in both of the photos here. Geez, they are quite similar. In saying that though, you can see, maybe I'm just making this up, the Pixel 6 does look a tad bit sharper. In terms of dynamic range and color, gosh, these they kind of both look the same. Interesting. Let's have a look on the Google Pixel 6 and see if we see any differences. Okay, can I see any differences in the pool here, in this puddle? Not really. I mean, I can zoom in a little bit further. By the way, this is with the wide cameras we're looking at here. So this is the 50 megapixels on the Google Pixel 6 and 12 on the 5. Okay, so at least from the phone to the iPad, I'm not seeing any sort of difference in terms of quality or sharpness. I mean, look, again, this is pixel peeping. Like, I'm sure normal people aren't just gonna be zooming in this far on their photos, but it's all for test's sake. But yeah, I mean, look, it looks super clear, super sharp. Dynamic range is all there. Unfortunately, it was an overcast day today, so you're not seeing many highlights in the sky anyway. But excellent, let's move on. So let's have a look at the ultra wide. As we remember, the Pixel 5 actually has a higher resolution when it comes to the ultra wide at 16 on the Pixel 5 versus 12 on the Pixel 6. And let's see if we can actually see any difference. Not really. Not really. They at least look like they're the same field of view, as in they're probably the same level of wide. But, oh, that's kind of interesting. Actually, hold on. Zoom in there. Okay, so if you look up here at the exit sign, you can see in the Google Pixel 6, that is noticeably less sharp than the 5. Noticeably noisier. Comparing, you can see it right here, like there's a lot of, sort of looks like either like a magenta tint to those shadows, whereas that it's so much cleaner. Even look at the lettering compared to exit here, compared to exit there. I wonder if it's the same around all the peripheries here. That looks largely the same. Really, what I think this has to say is that the Pixel 5, at least, is still an incredible camera. And I think where it lacks the megapixels and actual core resolution, it still makes up for in computational skills. So let's move on. That is a surprising result. Okay, so let's look at the selfie camera here on both the phones. Again, Pixel 6 on the left, Pixel 5 on the right. And starting off, we can see that the Pixel 6 has a wider camera, selfie camera, than the Pixel 5. Zooming in here, okay, there we go. So this is where we can see all those extra megapixels in the Pixel 6 really take effect. You see, we're looking at, again, 12 megapixels on the Pixel 6 versus 8 on the Pixel 5. And if you just look at my scruffy little beard here, there's so much more detail in the Pixel 6 than the Pixel 5. Like, my hairs are a lot more defined here than they are in the Pixel 5. Things like these patterns, this is where you can see a lot of phones and well, cameras particularly, where their resolution really either falls or succeeds. And it's in these tiny little details and patterns and how clean and how sharp they really are. The Pixel 6 does look a tad bit sharper. It looks like there's a bit more contrast in there. I'm seeing a little bit of a difference in skin tone. My skin definitely looks a little bit more red in the Pixel 5's photo. You can kind of see that if you're looking at my forehead. There's like either a bit more yellow or green there versus red in the Pixel 5. Okay, this is the part I'm looking forward to. This is the Pixel 6 Pro versus the iPhone 13. Again, Pixel 6 on the right, or on the left, iPhone on the right. And straight off the bat, I see quite a big difference here. So the iPhone 13 is rocking a 13 megapixel camera. Again, very similar to the the Pixel 5. But looking right here, there's a huge color difference. The Pixel is just a lot punchier, a lot warmer, which the Pixels are known to be. And again, it's worth noting, I shot this on the iPhone standard picture profile. So it has various different picture profiles, such as rich contrast, and there's a warmth and some other ones. The rich contrast one actually made to emulate the look of Pixels, or so people claim. But again, this is just the standard profile, not any of the other photo modes. But looking at this, let's zoom in here. Interestingly, there's so much more detail on the Pixel 6 than the iPhone 13, which again should be expected just considering. Now, I am curious, is that due to just processing and the added contrast? Or is that solely down to the megapixels? I think if we look here, I think, I'd be curious if I were to take these with a rich contrast profile, would the results be a lot more similar? I think one thing for sure where they differ is white balance. The iPhone is considerably cooler. The Pixel looks just a little bit sharper. Actually, let's have a look at this text. Again, yeah, Pixel. It definitely looks sharper on the Pixel. I think the most striking thing here is how the iPhone has kind of white balanced and also exposed the image. Like I'd certainly say the iPhone is just that looks a little bit overexposed. Okay, so we're having a look at the ultra wide on both cameras now. And I think the first thing I definitely noticed is the ultra wide is actually wider on the Pixel, or is wider on the iPhone 13. Just ever so, just a little bit, but you can definitely see when you look at the red gate in the background here, it's a lot further away in the iPhone's photo than it is in the Pixel. And I believe that's because the iPhone has a 0.5 times camera, whereas the Pixel has a 0.7 times. So not a huge difference, but again, it's just those little things that separate the phones. And again, the Pixel is rocking a 12 megapixel ultra wide. So we're gonna be seeing very similar specs comparing these two cameras. If you look at sort of the detail here behind this sign, you can see the droplets of rain that have gathered on the bottom of this railing, where in the iPhone, that is mush. There's nothing. Like you can even see the individual rail details coming down. And again, on the iPhone, mush. Can't see anything. We can see again, there's a bit of a difference in the white balance. This time the Pixel is a little bit cooler. Again, things like white balance it's quite relative. Like you're looking at these photos side by side. Again, if you were to own either of these phones, you're never going to be doing this. So the differences in white balance, really they're negligible. Everything, like if I was just looking at one of these photos by themselves, it would look fine. Okay, taking a look here, we're both looking at the regular cameras, regular lenses on each of the cameras. And let's just have a look at the text on this door. Both look quite similar, but actually looking right underneath the door, you can see there's a lot more detail in the road or in the pavement compared to the iPhone 13, which is lacking a lot of detail. Again, that is just mush. That is just mush compared to the Pixel. Coming out, all the colors look quite accurate. Again, looking at this Tesla, the iPhone looks like it has overexposed it slightly. Interestingly enough, it looks like it exposed the Tesla that little bit brighter, but then the sky looks considerably darker for the Pixel, or on the iPhone. You can hear it's that little bit cooler versus the Pixel. So again, you're seeing differences in white balance, but that's fairly negligible in the grand scheme of things. Interesting how the iPhone has recovered the blown out lamp here, and you can see the full color all the way through, versus the Pixel, which the center of the light is blown out. It's just, you can see it turns to straight white in the middle. Okay, so that is that for the comparison part. Let's look at the Pixel's photos just by themselves, and especially some of the newer features like the motion photos that have become available in this latest phone. So two of the new modes available on the Pixel, when you swipe over to the motion tab, which is also new, is long exposure and also action pan. So long exposure is kind of what it says on the tin. It uses computational photography or computational processing to create a long exposure from various different captures. Not quite the same how something like a DSLR or mirrorless camera actually creates a longer exposure, but it's kind of a guess. So let's have a look at that. The action pan, I did get a look at some of the photos and results from this. This is really cool. Basically what this does is it makes whatever your subject is still and the background totally blurred out, but different to how portrait mode does it. I'll show you just so you get the best idea. So, oh my God, I love that. That is so cool. That is so cool. So it looks like I've shot a picture of this car with a slower shutter speed, but just matching the speed of the Mitsubishi so that it's still. But look, oh my God, the amount of just energy and motion in this photo, that's incredible. Now, the more you zoom in and stuff, you can see there's kind of weird AI artifacting around, like here, if you like look at what it's doing to the power lines and to the road, it's kind of jagged and weird. But zoomed out, that looks flawless. Let's have a look at some others. So actually, here you go. This is basically what the phone captured, just a regular photo. But then the processing completely transforms it. Now, as far as I've seen so far, this is something that you have to actually capture with the camera. It's not something that you can post-process afterwards in the Photos app. It's so cool. Look at that. It looks like something that could honestly be in a car magazine. Just the absolute momentum and energy in these photos. This, hands down, this has to be my favorite feature. And it works all across all the lenses. So I believe this was taken on the 4x lens. Similar here. Look at that with the telephoto compression. Oh my God. It's fantastic. Edge detection looks great. I'm not seeing any artifacting. And what's great is it saves a regular version of that photo as well. But let's have a look at the long exposure mode, because I didn't have the most success with this, just in general. Slide through. So you can kind of see the ghosting here, and that's kind of the idea, is that the background is still and you'll see sort of traffic and everything fly through. Now, I was kind of hoping that at night, this would mean you'll get those beautiful light streaks going across traffic. So while I didn't have a chance to test this at night, I wanted to try it for myself here in the studio. So I just shut off all the lights, took my torch out, and I tried shining it around, hoping to get those nice little light streaks. And the result is less than optimal. Yeah, we're not, it didn't really work at all. I suppose that's where we'll leave it. There are some new modes as well, like the magic eraser mode, but when I tried to test it out, here, let's just try again for luck. Go to edit. And that's what's been happening. I don't fully understand why it's giving me this error. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, everything was working fine. Unable to edit, check your connection. I've never seen that before on anything. I assume this is pre-launch. This is up to date as well. I updated it just now, but I'm getting this weird error where I can't even edit the photo. So we'll have to check out the magic eraser another time. Maybe if you stick around and go to our Instagram, we'll post a reel there, or our TikTok at GetConnected Media. So while there isn't a huge difference between the Pixel 5 and Pixel 6 in terms of the main camera's sharpness and processing, what you're getting here is, for one, a 4x telephoto lens, another wide-angle lens, and a whole array of just wonderful features that, honestly, for a phone at this price point as well, starting at $1179, honestly, that's not bad. And this is a proper flagship phone with incredible specs and an incredible camera. So, if you enjoyed this video, please let us know. I had a lot of fun making it. And if you have any questions or comments, let us know down below. And make sure to like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe as well so you can stick around and see more videos just like this one in the future. My name's Robin, and thank you for having me. Okay, I recorded that for 30 minutes. I'm so bold.